Alright, back to Ratchet and Clank.
On Sargasso, you said you gave Ratchet the Dimensionator so that he could find the other Lombaxes. I never thought I'd meet one of us, much less find our home, if you can even call it that. Do you really think it would work?
No.
No? No!
Yeah, eyes on the space road, Rivet. Yeah, how did you not notice this? Anyway,
She was that
meanwhile on
much deep in
Blizar
thought
Prime.
and description.
Oh, what's left of it?
You gotta show how bad a bad guy is when he hollows out planets.
Well, this might have not been actually the Emperor's work, believe it or not, because this was one of his facilities, so he did not really had no reason to do so. So that's where we're here to find out. So yeah, apparently despite being in the vacuum, because Rivet needs the O2 mask, she doesn't need a full helmet. So I guess there is some degree of an atmosphere just not breathable normally, I guess.
It's weird. Like, honestly, I wonder if at some point they're just gonna throw up their hands and say, screw it. Lombaxes are the equivalent to Kryptonians. They can technically breathe in space.
Alright,
I'm talking space.
So he's in that, hitting that crystal allows us to basically jump between the Rivet's dimension and an alternate one which is almost identical, but in this case Blizar Prime is reconstructed, so we can shift freely between these two.
I wonder, do you think maybe they should have just kept it being that, you know, it switches between a Rivet's home dimension and Ratchet's home dimension?
Possibly,
just for the
I wouldn't
sake of
have minded
duality?
that. But I do like the. But to be fair, otherwise you run into the problem that instead, you know, oh, this is a multiversal story, but you do not take advantage of the infinite possibility of different dimensions. You just stick to two of them. You know, that kind of argument.
I agree, that would be cool. My only issue is, I don't think they really emphasize the multiversal nature of it, in the sense that, oh yes, this is technically a different version, but it's just, oh, a different look. They don't really go into the big lore bits of what's different
it's
about
not
each
apparent
one.
immediately, but the story, the mini story tied to this war specifically is super telegraphed, and you'll be able to figure out very quickly when the characters start speaking roughly about it. Again, that in itself is not a problem, but this contributes to one of the things that I argue the plot could have worked out in terms of having its kinks. A couple of the characters are not really as fleshed out as they could be. One we haven't really met yet, but for example, I argue even Emperor Neferus himself is not super as fleshed out as he would be, but he will show up and will have stuff to do. It's not like a last-minute final boss out of nowhere, don't worry about that. But I argue a world like this one, instead of having its own original plot that you are hearing right now about discovering what happened to Blizar Prime and using potentially the alternate one to forge the getting the phase-on quartz in order to power up the Dimensionator, could have been also used to further, enhance the backstory of some of the characters involved in this. Again, I know what the thought process that they're having, the one about, Jesus Christ, again with the mocap. I know what thought process that they're having, as in, classic Spyro style level, where the world is having its own kind of problem, you arrive there and solve the mini story tied to it, and then you're on your merry way, but it contributes to the large narrative. And that is fine, technically. But this game doesn't really have that much of a luxury in terms of being able to dilate itself across a lot of worlds that it can use for this very purpose. So I argue they could have used the extra time to fuel a bit more about learning about the alternate versions of some of the characters that we we know by this point. Again,
this is why I kind of do wonder.
It will come more clean by the time we get to the end. Go on.
This is again why I do wonder if maybe they would have been better off just having it be, oh, you switch between mainly the two main dimensions, because as far as I can tell, the story mainly takes place in Rivet's home dimension.
Yes, we will get back to Ratchet's own dimension in the final level. So if you were expecting to see again, the mainline Quark, Skid, and Rusty Pete, you will have to wait.
Which is, I mean, I feel like, okay, you wanted to do a multiversal story, but You don't really do...
Again, Jova,
well,
it
okay.
contributes to showcase the fact that the plot had been rewritten a couple of times at the very least.
Come on!
And you know what? This is something I do notice whenever a series is coming off of a long hiatus, that it really, really feels like the story writers are kind of panicking and maybe want to play things a bit too safe here and there, which, okay, on one hand, I kind of get it. You know, the Ratchet & Clank series had been pretty much on ice for, God, over half a decade by this point, essentially.
And almost an entire one season into the Nexus, remember that.
That too, yeah. So, on the one hand, I kind of get them wanting to play it a little safe. On the other hand, though, there is such a thing as too safe, especially if, well, you end up taking too long. Like, okay, look at Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. Now, arguably still a good game, essentially. And, you know, some people considered it a nice return. However, since we haven't gotten a new Crash game since, a lot of people have had more time to reflect on some of the issues with that game, both narrative, gameplay, story, and completion-wise, essentially. And now, I wouldn't say we're to the point of hating it, but there are a lot of people kind of, you know, getting a bit mixed on it. And I do worry that that might be the case for Rift Apart if, A, they take too long, and B, we don't get, like, a really good follow-up that showcases that Rift Apart was maybe a proof of concept in the sense that maybe it's them playing it lightly with the multiversal stuff, and maybe they'll go more properly wild with it in follow-up games.
I don't know about that, especially considering, you know, the way this game ends. But again, we'll have to get there, basically. For the time being, as showcased, we need to traverse through the two different Blizon Primes, with the idea of opening up a path in one dimension that unlocks subsequently another one in the other. Don't ask how that works.
Those purple crystals are not to be mistaken with that of the Nexus Force.
To be fair, they are a fairly lighter shade of purple compared to, you know, the ones that Nexus had, which were definitely more, not colorful, but less saturated, admittedly. And by the way, I did not even mention, speaking of returning things from into the Nexus, the gravity jumping from platform to platform. Again, it's a little thing, but it was introduced in that game, and it's nice that they've not forgotten about it.
That could be interesting, actually. Multiversal versions of the Nexus twins. Which, when you think about it, technically came from another dimension, if we're counting, you know...
Yeah, the Neververse.
Nexus has its own dimension, the Neververse and whatnot.
Yes,
but
it is.
I guess that would call into question, though. If they come from their own dimension, but are technically inhabitants of Ratchet's dimension by the time of this game, could that mean that there are different versions of them that came from yet another dimension, but are inhabitants of Rivet's dimension?
Or, simply put, they're native to Rivet's dimension, you know, and they're considered alternate ones from the ones who came from the Never dimension. Again, point of origin doesn't necessarily mean much in terms of, you know, the grand scheme of things.
I mainly just bring this up because the logic that at least this game seems to be going on is essentially, here's a mirror counterpart to basically everyone from the game series that you know and love, essentially. Even if, again, they don't seem to always consider the implications of what that means.
Technically yes and no, but like I said, the only real questioning about it is when it comes to Rivet herself, because, like I said, what the game seems to be telling is that the Lombaxes originated for the most part in Ratchet Dimension, but did exist in others. But at the same time, we're tacking on, you know, Rose to Power. We decided to tuck tail and collect all the Lombaxes in other dimension, and then scatter into even more ones in order to avoid getting caught. And basically, and that's probably why Rivet is here. Maybe she was native to this dimension, maybe she was also native to Ratchet's dimension and she was instead left in this one. Nobody knows, at least as far as we know.
Watch, just to shut up the obnoxious shippers, the writers are probably going to make it that Rivet and Ratchet are actually siblings.
Why not at this point? And again, even just being alternate dimension doesn't seem to stop, you know, some people. We were talking about Crash 4. Apparently, Dingodile seems to be enjoying the fact that Entropy loves to flirt with his dimensional counterpart, because what the hell?
Bro, where are we? Who cares? Grab the Lombax!
Yes.
It just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the people in Insomniac knew exactly what they were doing with this at this point.
Well, that's the thing, though. Technically, the whole gooning,
Well,
as it's used now,
it wasn't in vogue, but it's not a thing like it wasn't a thing beforehand. I get it was more of a case they were trying, by this point in time, they were basically playing around with an innuendo that was not as popular back then, and it just so happens that, it got in vogue, not a few years afterward.
You know what, you might be right. Gooning as that meme may have actually been a thing in the 2020, around the early 2020s, but it didn't really erupt until later. Let me check.
Also, yeah, again, as I mentioned, the mechanic of the enemies reacting to which weapon you use is actually always very cute. Again, it also showcased the amount of recorded voice lines that the games have. It's still not as impressive as what they did for the Nemesis system in the Middle-earth Shadow duology, but it's still a level of commitment that I do respect.
Okay, so technically the idea for gooning being used in that context is older than we think. It's technically been a thing since 2005, apparently.
This is the second time today I've come across lava in something.
That being said,
yes,
that being said, yeah, it only really became super popular as that term in the later 2020s, so technically, yeah, you're probably right. Insomniac probably knew what they were doing, but back then it was an innuendo less well-known, so they could definitely get away with it easier.
I wouldn't be too surprised... Shit. I wouldn't be too surprised if it was a thing that the people in the Insomniac forums did use from time to time, because, that would check out with the timing. And it's something is a remnant that, the higher-ups knew even after the closure of their forum board.
Interesting.
Anyway, we're in the main place of Blizar Prime, the place where they're mining stuff, but we cannot just collect the face quartz yet, which is a good point for me to mention in the meantime. You might remember that this goes a bit against, theoretically, what the comic said, that the comic established specifically that the Dimensionator utilized a piece of dark matter from a rough dimensional comet, and, the villain did discover that accidentally and used that to his advantage. Well, instead here they said the primary component is quote-unquote phase quartz that can be mined only from this place, based on Prime.
Oh boy, a sous chef.
Okay, not sure why the cut to black, but you do you game.
Also, they kind of had people talking on top of each other in that scene.
Yeah, because the game is registering. That's an option that I can potentially toggle in different ways. How much layers of people at the same time I can hear about, to give you more or less immersion. Also, more Blargian crabs in places where they shouldn't be.
Weird. Hey, look, we had those Blarg resources, we're gonna use them. Going back to what you said about the text, though, it helps that it's descriptive enough that I can at least tell who or what I'm listening to with each text box, so it doesn't bug me too much. It was weird, though, that I could hear them talking on top of each other, though. I feel like that maybe they should have put in a different mechanic for, but
Anyway,
small potatoes.
To continue mentioning, again, I firmly am convinced that the people who wrote to this game probably don't know much about the comic or decided to ignore it, but you can make the justification in universe that since the Dimensionator had been kind of rebuilt by Clank, he just used a different component than the one that was used originally. So,
yeah, that was technically a thing where the bad guy was technically making his own dimension when you think about it.
Well, no, it was making his own galaxy and using the Dimensionator's technology, or at least, a part of it, to phase out entire planets, teleporting them, but not technically putting them into another dimension, just temporarily making them phase in and out because of how curvature space works in stuff like Star Trek. You know, it just so happens that because Ratchet used at the end of the comic, you know, the Praetorian Guard staff and charged negatively the comic shard, the portal that opened was more, you know, rough in state, and that was, you know, what catapulted the villain to the same asteroid that had Tachyon stranded in. Anyway, oh Jesus. Anyway, we need this side mission is for us to actually find the missing chef, because apparently, to be fair, they make a point that these people mine all day out, so they do need something good to eat as a bit of a reward at the very least. Frankly, I'm just reminded of one of those horrible sketches, not sketches, but, you know, segments from that awful Seth MacFarlane movie, like A Million Ways to Die in the West, where it tells in excruciating details way the fact that miners enjoy spicy foods because they're basically numb to everything else, and it's so fucking stupid.
I have not seen that movie yet.
Yeah, don't bother. It's very bad comedy, to quote. Well, again, to quote properly Galvatron, this is bad comedy. Just, you don't know how much.
I love how, well, God, if ever there were an example of a movie that technically bricked at the box office, but is now one of the most iconic bits of media that everyone loves to quote, it is the original Transformers movie, aka the Great Toy Massacre of 84, or 85.
And all because, you know, Hasbro had no fucking idea what their customer actually wanted. Brilliant.
It gets even better. After the movie, what did they do with Optimus Prime? They brought him back as a traumatic zombie.
And from what I understand, they did not have Rodimus Prime written in the best way possible. But again, only in a second.
Nah.
And like all great artists, I can only create beauty when I'm suffering.
Uh-huh.
To make my great.
This particular side quest screams early Spyro game mission.
With this, vacuum suck. But doing so. So I'll need someone to defend me from those allergic to brilliance.
It is technically an escort mission, but trust me, it's not as hard as it may sound.
Start the extraction sequence with that.
If anything, it's more of a turret defense, but a more simplified one, so it's not the same as the ones in Full Frontal Assault / Q-Force. You also have more, as you'll be able to see, you'll also have more options for mobility thanks to the scattered, you know, rifts.
But yeah, no, Transformers the movie, aka the Great Toy Massacre of 1986. Like, yes, back in the day, unless you were something insanely popular like Scooby-Doo, you were typically a showman to sell toys, and Transformers was quintessential for that. So Transformers went the ultra-cynical methodology of going, you know, we want to sell a whole new brand of characters, so let's get rid of a ton of our characters, including Optimus frickin' Prime. I'm sure that'll go over just well. What? It's okay. We'll even have him die in a traumatic fashion and everything in the theaters. The kids will love it. Note the kids did not love it. and the parents especially did not like it. Like, ignoring the fact that there were adults who legit liked Transformers as well, the parents weren't exactly happy that they had to console their kids about, you know, death to that degree. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, you see death in kids' movies every now and then, but Jesus Christ, Optimus Prime's death was literally after him being gunned down, him having to take out what was the equivalent of his soul just to make sure that it would live on in the Matrix, essentially, and the life literally fading from not just his eyes, but his entire chassis as his head falls listlessly.
The death blow was given for him in order to protect what he was protecting. Again, a character that not many people were liking, Hot Rod.
I feel so sorry for Hot Rod, aka Rodimus Prime. Like, I'm not even his biggest fan either, but dude got dealt a crap hand. He did legit want to help, just did it in the worst way possible, but okay, look. One could say, okay, he's finally become leader by the end of the movie. We'll see what we do with that. And then season three then basically initiated every old trick in the book, making him doubt himself, making him try to step down from the position time and time again. And he could whine a bit about it too, so yeah, don't get me wrong, he had a bit of a hate which, apparently came to fruition with that Transformers What If comic about the movie, but I digress. But nonetheless, I can't entirely blame his haters, because a lot of his prime did not exactly have the best track record himself, sadly.
From what I understand, Hasbro wanted to repeat the same trick about killing an important established character for the G.I. Joe movie, but because, what happened with the Transformers movie, they actually had to change at that last minute. Which is hilarious, consider what happens in G.I. Joe Retribution, but I digress.
Time be a flat circle.
Again, it's so weird because me and Deji again saw recently the G.I. Joe movies, and apparently Rise of the Cobra still is considered at the very least mediocre, but I argue that I enjoyed it much more than I should be. Like, and I know relatively little about G.I. Joe. Deji to explain to me a couple of things, but I can tell that the movie has some soul into it. Definitely better than what I've seen of the Bayformers movie at the very least, so I don't know what happened.
How about you gonna say better than Snake Eyes?
Well, technically speaking, yes. Snake Eyes is just very, very confused in what it wants to do. But I can still appreciate a bit more the attempt. But instead, Retaliation, I don't know what it wanted to do, because it tries to be basically a story in its own right, with its own things, and while it has some cool concepts like Cobra utilizing tungsten rods, or they're more colloquially called the sci-fi community rods from God, in order to destroy literally the entirety of London with one single strike. That is hilarious as shit.
Oh my goodness.
They also have the movie kill off the vast majority of established characters, including the protagonist of the first movie for some reason, and the ones you're left with you don't particularly care much.
What the hell? Was it being made during a time when G.I. Joe was in like a flop era or something?
Remind me again, Dweebs.
Yeah?
Can you check me again when G.I. Joe Retaliation came out? I think Rise of the Cobra came out in 2009.
2013.
Okay, no, so it was way after the writer's strike, because again, instead Rise of the Cobra was more, into that period. I don't know what to tell you, Joe. I'll need to check again more detailed information about that movie. But needless to say, it was really just a very bizarre attempt. And again, I wouldn't even mind to see what they do for that fabled crossover with Transformers that they teased at the end of Rise of the Beast. Certainly not as much as the solo movie that they're doing now, considering the people involved with it, but again, I digress.
I swear, Hasbro series have had such a weird track record. Like, pretty much any of their franchises has had some weird history, especially of how they handle it, success or not.
Alright, we're done. As you can see, protecting the vacuum sack was not that particularly hard. And again, as a reminder, I'm playing in normal mode, so, you can imagine how piece easy will be on easier difficulties.
Thank you for your assistance.
Look, Rivet, have you ever heard of the term suffering for your success?
And to be fair, we do get a reward, an infobot, which glitches a bit. Apologies for the textures. Again, it was just experimenting with.
I was wondering if it was supposed to glitch like that.
No, not like that. The flickering a bit probably happens because of some settings that I had.
Blizar Prime is a Ragongo-level mining operation, known as the galaxy's main source of Blizon crystals. Integrated in high-energy capacitors, this material was once prevalent in computers, starships, and whoopinators. These days, however, the rare ore is mostly shipped to the Emperor's research facility on Cordelion for various dark projects. Speaking of which, when the dimensional crisis broke out earlier today, communication with the miners went silent, and their shipments...
This is actually important for how the things are resolved in this particular world.
Blizar might not be the
And again, it might not be the case of something the Emperor did, because remember, at this point in time, the Emperor is away quelching some other rebellion in another fringe of the galaxy. So nobody knows what exactly happened, because it happened right as the dimensional credit started, which it means not too long ago.
Boy, how messed up would it be if it turned out we accidentally caused this disaster by activating the Dimensionator the way we did?
Well, not really, but again, you'll be able to see when we get close. Again, you might have already started piecing a bit of the puzzle, but it will become much more clear later. Basically, I was just checking if I could get some collectibles in the meantime, but no. So let me move forward. You might notice also that the locals all look the same. Again, alien species and everything, but again, it's also another cute reminder of classic Spyro levels where all the NPCs did look the same.
I find it funny that that one guy was mocap, but a lot of these other moved more like they were just programmed.
That was because that particular cut. Jesus, what happened there? That was a cutscene that had the characters being mocapped, while instead the characters that had to move on a rail properly tends to, just be animated regularly. This is what I mean by the fact that not every single thing in this game has been mocapped, so it creates a bit of a jarring dissonance when you start noticing. Again, it is the equivalent, it is properly uncanny valley because it's the equivalent of, changing movement, but it's way too sudden, even if it's considered quote-unquote normal, because, it's mocapped, so it's a real person that is walking at a regular speed. That a human can possibly achieve. But because of the way normally a product like this would be animated, it sticks out. Instead, you have something, for example, like the recent Mortal Kombat games, where everything is technically mocapped, except maybe the more over-the-top actions, like some of the fatalities, but the way they're animated is done in such a way that it blends instead seamlessly. So I really don't know what happened here.
Seriously, this is a big deal. It completely...
For a while, I wondered if it was a case where it was an editorial mandate from Sony, because, you have this fancy technology that you used for stuff like the first Spider-Man game. Might as well, keep going with it. Also, returning, of course, the ad size cheat. But no, I don't really think so. I guess it's just a thing in order to optimize time and money consumption, because it kind of makes sense. If you're using the mocap, that basically means less time animating something and less cost that you are requiring to do something as a result.
Like, it's not even a case where, using this mocap makes it look better, because mocap is usually best used for when you're using people with realistic human proportions and whatnot.
I'm kind of reminded of that Simpsons sketch where Homer gets to have the mocap suit, but all it does is him accidentally peeing somewhere, which is hilarious because this actually happened with some VTuber sketch at one point. So once again, Simpsons predicting something.
Do you hear that?
No.
Voices. Haven't been hearing them for too long. Wherever the purple is, they are too. First the quakes and the Blizar. Now this.
I don't hear anything. Except someone asking if you'll be drilling for phase court soon.
Not until I determine what's going on. For all we know, this whole drill site is hot.
I don't know who voices the chief engineer, but I heard this voice already.
Scan the purple.
And
I have to pick
I will say, the Dimensionator mechanic here is an interesting counterpart to the time travel in Crack in Time. Because I notice here, obviously, you have a more derelict version of this place, but then you can switch to a more happier and lively one that's populated by a ton of these guys, essentially.
Well, it's more of a case of just shifting thanks to random phase cores that are present there. Or specifically, I forgot what they called it, because it will not be the last time that it's present. But the Dimensionator instead needs to have the coordinates being input in the device, or in the case of the original helmet, just shouting the magic word, Dimensionator, find me this. and it
Oh,
using your scanning your brain pattern.
Well, my point is more so about, switching between a sadder, darker version and a happier, more cheerful version. Although in Crack in Time, you did a little bit of Sonic CD stuff to, of course,
And it was more
make the
intentional.
future version happier.
This is more casual because this is just happens to be a happy coincidence where the characters are stumbling into.
That is true.
While in A
Like I
Crack in
said, though,
Time, it was a case where most of the time rifts were something that Clank had programmed or asked Sigmund to do it.
We've made a few comparisons to Crack in Time. Do you think maybe they were mostly taking cues from Crack in Time as, like, not to say it was the last Ratchet and Clank game that people ever liked, but I do feel like it was the last one that the fan base definitely loved,
Well,
essentially.
it was also one of the more popular and that sold the most, so, if you want to make nostalgia, go for it. Again, usually go for that. Again, I find it particularly cynical because the rules to me for a crossover or something that caches from the history of something should probably prioritize what makes more sense out of the story in what it wants to reference rather than picking quote-unquote what is popular or what sells. But again, because we still live in an age where art is mostly dictated by capital, there's not much more we can do about it.
God, imagine a utopia where nobody had to worry about profits whenever making art.
But I digress. For now, we need to have the to find back the different bots that the chief engineer has scattered around in order to gather data.
The tremors are increasing in frequency and size.
Crystals. Of course.
No.
Too much to ask that we be able to find phase cores without dodging earthquakes and lava?
How are there earthquakes in space?
It's because the Blizar Prime in this version is still, fully compacted. It's not, it's still a proper planet. It's not, scattered throughout. While instead...
I mainly ask because... Oh, sorry.
No, go on.
I mainly ask because in its current state here, it's kind of about a floating space debris in the
This is
sense
because,
where...
remember, this is a mining planet, so while there, as you can see, there are the chasms, the planet is still compacted in its own right.
Interesting. I guess it's just a severe case of gravity where even with some pieces floating off and whatnot, they're still, for the most part, tied enough to each other. Kind of like in Sonic Unleashed, where even though the Earth was shattered,
especially because
it wasn't
you can
like
see the
the
lava at
pieces
the
floated
bottom,
up.
much like in Sonic Unleashed. While instead in the fragmented Blizar Prime, because the core went kaput as well, you don't get to see the bottom of it because, of course, you're just floating in space. How did this happen? Yes, I'm getting there, Bob.
Patience.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, Professor, when they say like strike now, I thought it was like a QTE or something.
No, surprisingly, no, there are no QTs in this. Actually, I don't remember when was the last time the franchise did had proper QTs. Okay, technically speaking, I guess the pirate dancing minigames in Tools of Destruction, but I could swear there was something else in the meantime between that and this. Because the hacking minigame from the Imagining was the same as the original, so it was more a case of matching the lines, without crossing the streams. So no, A Crack in Time, I don't really think it had an equivalent to that. Full All for One, not really. Well, okay, that's some context-sensitive QTEs, but they felt more of a case of a check of is every single player ready to move on. But he did add admittedly something akin to that. I mean, so I guess I can count it.
Oh, right. Another bot. On it.
Uh-huh. Okay. Alright, time to crash them again. Not really much, you kinda should have seen me coming, but whatever. Sure.
That's just what they tell themselves.
guess maybe the joke is that with the leader being arrested or dead or killed. I really don't know what happened in Going Commando. The organization is a bit more scatterbrained. Which, to be fair, it's kind of like what happened in Link to the Nexus as well. So I do wonder if by that point, and already by that point, Insomniac just wanted to take the piece out of the mercenary groups that you fight in the Uncharted games instead. Especially considering how the second game of that franchise tried to actually, you know, raise the question that everyone was asking, and then Neil Druckmann later on just put a bit of a shrug and said, do the narrative dissonance, whatever the hell that means. Alright, let's get back to the second bot.
Stop and listen. He's damaged. We will destroy. You don't need it that bad.
I wonder what this means. Yeah, already by this point I had already figured out what the punchline was. And again, let's be fair, the target audience for a game like this is still fairly young, not very super young kids, but at the very least early teens, so you know. I'm not expecting the most Shakespearean of plot for every single encounter that they have, but I argue we're not trying too hard in this case to try to play a bit with expectations.
Again, if I were to compare it to the other big points in the franchise, that being Ratchet & Clank 3 and Ratchet & Clank Crack in Time, I feel like, you know, they were made with more so all ages in mind, as opposed to making things this telegraphed, if you ask me. I mean, that's not to say it's anything terrible, it's just a bit of like...
hey, you say Lombaxes can't be your bro?
Sorry, dude.
I guess they're racist.
Or at the very least, you know, not inclusive for their group.
It's very,
very
sad.
I would expect so much better from goons.
Yeah, no, hey, I've seen plenty of inclusive goon groups.
Exactly.
I mean, like I said, even in universe, some things have changed because one game before this, they did have consistently, you know, Russian accent, but apparently all those peoples have been gone, are basically gone in the meantime. Care to tell me what happened to them?
I wonder. Meanwhile, I guess Atomic Hearts still kept that.
Well, to be fair, Atomic Heart is supposed to be basically Soviet Bioshock to begin with, so it kind of makes sense. Similar to how Singularity was supposed to be, you know.
It's Soviet Bioshock if for some reason Andrew Ryan was horny when he made robots.
I mean, I guess. Did they actually hire the actual Russian voice actors for that game? I know these days it might be more iffy, but, you know, just for the sake of when they did the first game in mind.
They may have. Also, to be fair, Russian actors aren't necessarily going to be taboo or sanctioned and whatnot.
It really depends on the circumstances. As we can see also from, you know, voice actors of our country, that really doesn't stop them for being involved in real world politics, you know, every 5 minutes. So, you know, I wouldn't be too surprised if that's, you know, a bit of a stingy argument. What the hell?
You okay?
Are you alright?
So you can stay there until there's some respect.
Honestly, I think that was a mercy killing right there.
10 out of 10, working as intended.
The poor creature was stuck in quicksand and couldn't get out.
It's
all according to plan.
Plan means Keikaku. It's kind of like with Roger Van der Dyne's video Sonic 06, where they get to the bed to Silver's future. Hey Sonic, look what it is! Oh no, I'm creeping through the floor.
It's like on tears sometimes.
Yeah, that too. Didn't Jet had one of its skits where Sonic talks to Sage about it or something?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so.
Alright, crank that Soldier Boy up, Rivet, as soon as you can get in position. Yeah, that's weird. Sometimes the game doesn't register me pressing square despite being in the right spot.
This may bring us one step
weird.
closer to reaching the bot.
Alright, moving up. Basically, moving that crystal allows basically us to have the equivalent of a teleportation point in the right spot.
Oh, nice. All these different forms of teleportation and dimension warping.
Yeah.
Literally at our fingertips. How has all of reality not imploded with how easy it is when you think about it?
I really wonder what this mysterious stranger that we found in Rivet's dimension in the ruins of Blizon Prime wants to warn us about.
It could be anything.
What are y'all doing here? Returning to Chief Engineer with important message.
What, the Sam Hill?
Yeah, I guess that's the joke. It's called Sam, so has a southern accent.
Thanks. Come back to
Ah.
the survey station.
Say, Larry, shut up.
See what the little bot's picked up from the other side.
Don't think Rivet counts it as a loose life form.
I get the feeling the
Excuse,
system
I
is
am
super
quite
hostile.
harmless, thank you.
You are not a life form. You are a robot. You don't count for life.
Okay, Sebastian Starr.
I am deeply offended.
Don't worry, I am a machine too. I have gone through the midlife crisis to realize that none of our lives matter because we have no lives.
Shit.
Now, prepare to die.
Yeah. I would feel more sad for you if you weren't trying to kill me.
From my dimension to yours. Now I'm gonna reduce it to scrap metal.
I'm Rivet.
Yeah, you can notice also that the Tokyo Sprinkler also works on mini-bosses. I don't think also on proper bosses too, but at the very least. Again, the overall thing that I can say is that the arsenal in this game seems to be more effective overall against everyone. Not there's still a bit of a disparity in order to make boss fights a bit more challenging, but at the very least it doesn't make you feel like some of your weapons are completely useless against bosses, which is more than I can say for, you know, the arsenal of a couple of previous games. I still prefer, I think, the arsenal from A Crack in Time, but this one is still solid enough to me. Although, admittedly, again, the lack of a groovy trolley is really actually felt.
Security walls disarmed. Thank you, and have a blazing Blizar day.
Very indecisive, aren't you?
Maybe the system was made
Oh
that way
boy,
to
I
be
wonder
bipolar.
what this mysterious message that we've been getting only pieces of it is actually going to tell us while we actually go to reactivate the main drill. I think you're clipping into each other, whatever.
Hello, are you my
Hello, Jim.
Sure?
Happy noises.
Rivet, are you sure you should tell him that?
Quartz extracting drill in the name of friendship.
Hooray!
How nice of you.
He's gonna be so disappointed when we never come back to see him again.
We saw on Sargasso.
Maybe the bot has a protocol for that.
As your best friend, I must warn you that dimensional integrity could have affected the drill.
What's that mean?
Oh dear.
Best friend, I do not want you to worry, so I will not expound at this time. Instead, impromptu music.
Okay.
Maybe telling us might help us in the long run, though.
Until the blockage in that tube is cleared.
We should go for karaoke after this. Do you like karaoke, best friend? I will dislike it if you dislike it.
Ready to fix another dimensional mess?
Leave it to me.
This is where I must leave you in
Anything to shut Jim up.
spirit. Goodbye, best friend.
Goodbye, Jim.
Gonna miss that little
I, for one, Rivet, will not.
So am I.
Sorry, Clank. No.
I got to know him so well for all the 30 seconds I spoke to him.
Alright, time to actually help Gary, and if you completed Savali before this, as you notice, Gary will actually tell us that he just meant Ratchet. If you didn't, he will just have a different, more generic phrase. Again, the game tries to have a couple of mini rewarding things depending on which order you do the planets for.
That's a heavy sphere. It will weigh down any object it touches.
There you go, this sphere is a weight sphere. and allows the downsizing of object. Again, it's still a it's still a fairly easy way on how you handle puzzles. Only later on it becomes a bit more challenging. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gary. Forgive me there. I just fell to my death.
As Tojo just stated when that happens.
What is he doing now?
Basically, the weight sphere allows both the lowering of objects and also basically allowing you to move through wind currents. Not sure how that works out, but you know.
How lovely.
Basically, again, the gameplay of VC is more straightforward, but not as easy because of that. Fuck, it's more of a case of me just leaping out of the platform, and even then, like I said, it's an option that you can even turn away in the accessibility option, so we actually don't fall.
Kind of funny how in some cases the robots kind of just run aimlessly to their deaths.
Well, they're following a premeditated path. The idea is to be something similar to, say, the Lemmings games, in which you have to create the ideal path for them to reach from point A to point B, or, more appropriately from this franchise, a bit similar to the Gadget Bot minigame from Size Matters. Only that in this case you can see you have a three-dimensionality kind of, you know, gimmick rather than to be confined with a 2.5D plane.
Mm-hmm. Look at her children. Make it to safety.
It's not even children, it's more literally about, you know, a theoretical infinite number of you doing that.
Which implies that a good number of him have also died when he gets it wrong.
Potentially. Again, when you deal with the idea of something infinite, the percentage of what is actually present and what is going to potentially expire via entropy is only matters only in a relative way.
It is interesting. For being dimensional counterparts, Ratchet and Rivet have surprising differences. Ratchet never had any wariness of robots when he met me. Yet Rivet does.
No, he was really, really rude to me, but we tend to ignore that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, again, I get what you mean, Waves, but Ratchet wasn't technophobic to begin with. He was just, you know, a jerk in its own merit. While instead, Rivet seems to have definitely some level of distrust for machine life forms.
My possibilities are a visual representation of my mind, trying to understand dimensionality.
Oh, what fun.
The more I help them find their way, the more I will understand and
This is why a lot of, you know, stories about trying to comprehend the time and dimensions tend to oversimplify this, because in other cases it would be a Lovecraftian-like situations where your mind cannot literally comprehend whatever the fuck is happening and you either go insane or your head explodes.
Oh, nice! I never thought to use the sphere like that. Is there anything about Ratchet and Rivet that's the same?
They're both Lombaxes.
Well, technically, yes.
Like me, I always get so caught up in the details.
And you wish you were better about that.
Not all the time, but it would be nice to not have to worry so much.
Again, in order to make sure that you pass some time while, you know, solving the puzzle, they do have this dialogue that not only references past events, but also tries to reflect a bit about Clank and Ratchet's, you know, lives, which I do again appreciate. And again, it really just is a bit of a shame that potentially people can skip over entirely via the function in the options. Again, if it becomes too difficult, I get it to an extent, you know, for the case of, but at the very least I know that you will have tried, you know, at that point.
Full speed ahead.
Ah, Clank! I think I know how to help you with your getting caught up in the details problem.
Oh, do you now?
You just gotta be company.
What do you mean?
Of course. It's just that simple.
Acting like you know what you're doing can get you everywhere.
I forgot when we will learn exactly.
I'm not sure that's how it works.
Right,
Just run with it.
I think they mentioned already, and we talked over it, but basically, just in case, because again, it's not too much of a spoiler for at this point, Gary's father is the plumber, which justifies him not appearing in his game as a result.
Wow, Apple fell a bit far from the tree in terms of looks.
I think he will mention later that he's just adopted. Again, it's not that big of a deal. It's more of a case of being his successor in his job about multidimensional, knowledge kind of guy.
And omnipotence and all that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if that works. There you go.
The Blizar anomaly has been fixed. Great job, Clank.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And remember, confidence is...
I love Clank's walking cycle while affected by the heavy sphere.
My back.
My leg.
Walk it off. Walk it off.
Okay.
I can't. I have no legs in the real world.
And I must scream, yes.
Now we can deal with the clock.
Alright, now with the crank open, let's open the way up.
How about a cranking time?
No. In order to, there you go, to fix the tube. There you go.
With that fixed, we should now be able to use that elevator.
Time to drill for some phase quartz.
Yeah, sometimes I get the feeling. I heard that Jennifer Hale voice a lot when she was in Totally Spies.
Which character she was voicing?
Sam.
Which
And the school bully in that one.
Remind me, is Sam the one with the black hair?
Yeah, the
No,
red
no,
hat.
no.
Okay.
Sam's the redhead in green. The one you're thinking of with black hair is Alex.
Okay.
Also, you're saying that she also voiced Mindy, too?
Yeah, the bully, I think.
Wow, okay, that is definitely a different voice than what Jennifer Hale... Oh, okay, again. Usually, when you're thinking of Jennifer Hale, chances are you're thinking of something like, say,
Black Cat.
We will soon. Then we can
Yes,
stop it
like
from
Black
happening in
Cat.
this dimension.
I wonder.
That's, that's an interesting choice of words there, Rivet.
Again, Rivet is the kind of Lombax that's similar to Ratchet, who wants to live for the moment, instead of having to think too much about it. That's why, for Ratchet, it's Clank to compensate that aspect of his character.
It's good that she's just as prominent at rail grinding as Ratchet is, too. Clearly, this is a thing all Lombaxes learn to do when they're young.
Travel
Rail
with the
on
trolley, eh?
They learn how to grind on rails like their great ancestors, Sonicus M. Hedgehog.
Isn't it, but remind me again, what was that name that we mentioned when we did Set AM, that was his name in the Archie comics or something?
His real name, yes, Algovai P. Maurice Hedgehog.
That sounds so fucking fanficky.
If I recall correctly, even with the comic where that's his real name, they made it clear that he's embarrassed by that name and just went with Sonic instead.
Yeah, basically going full Darth Vader, that name has no more significance to me or something like that.
That name no longer has any meaning for me.
There you go.
I forget if it was Ken Penders who gave him that as his original name or whatnot. Would not surprise me if it was. Let me check.
There you go, there's the main rail that we came here for. Alright, we just need to activate it and we can get our phase quartz willy-nilly. No strings attached. That's super specific, Rivet. Yeah, I agree with Clank.
Specific goals are achievable.
And yes, it was indeed.
Rivet, specific goals are achievable goals is a neat phrase if you want to attach it to a fortune cookie or something, but that really does not mean much.
Perhaps these are the life values that she was raised on?
The Lombax says, everyone, the mightiest inventory in all of the multiverse.
Beautiful.
We should locate the crank.
But yeah, no, yes, I can indeed confirm it was Ken Penders who decided to give Sonic the middle name Maurice.
Alright, here we go.
With his real name being Ogilvy Maurice Hedgehog. Jesus Christ.
Brilliant news. I decoded the message from beyond. Listen. Finally, good reception. Listen. Do not turn
Oh
on the
wow,
drill.
who could have seen this
Oops.
coming?
Drill destroyed our
Oh wait, it
Blizar.
was
You
me.
mean-
I saw this coming like something like 40 minutes ago.
You mean to tell me that the garbled message was telling us to do the opposite of what we thought it wanted us to do?
And that the Blizar Primal Rivet's dimension was caused by this exact accident that is happening right now. You know,
You know what this...
like I,
You know
like
what
I
this
said,
is like?
in a vacuum it's perfectly fine, but we've seen this story happen way too many times. At this point, the cliche is a bit too stale, if you ask me.
I know I've compared this to Crack in Time, but this really feels like whenever people are trying to prevent a bad future, but
They are
of
the
course
cause
they
of it,
didn't get
so,
the full...
yeah.
Yep, they didn't get the full message, so...
I've seen this
uh-oh,
in,
we accidentally caused it.
This was in a Doctor Who episode.
Well, yeah, with a franchise that runs for entire decades, lives, you're kind of bound to run into that plot point.
A group of freedom fighters tried to stop their version of a planet from Earth, I think, from being overrun by the Daleks.
Phase quartz.
They go back in time and have someone who they believe caused the end of the world killed, only for it to turn out to be it was their actions in the first place, not the guy they were trying to kill, that caused the problem.
Although I
I'm pretty
do,
sure
I do
as
like
long as it's been running, Doctor Who has done pretty much every time travel trope you can think of at this point.
I do kind of like the shifting between that you're fighting 1 second the goons for less, and because you shift dimension, immediately you still have to resume the fight, but instead it's against the Emperor Nefarious troops now. Again, it
That
gives
is a nice touch.
It gives that kind of scale and set piece that, you know, a game like this needs without, again, having to waste the player's time.
Good stuff.
Like I said,
that's definitely...
I only have a problem with this level, but not just because of the plot is fairly cliched for this specific macro story, but also because, like I said, on the long run, this time could have been spent better. Let's just say that. You'll be able to see what I mean by when we get to the end.
It is a bit of a shame if it's a waste of our time if, you know, we were doing all this to activate the drill that, spoilers, we were not supposed to actually activate.
Well, we still
Whoopsie.
did get phase quartz, so it's just that we need to prevent the drill from exploding in these alternate dimensions too, you know.
But yeah, no, I do agree that I do like sort of the chaotic energy of, like, you switch from one dimension to the other, you still have to deal with enemies on both sides. It does feel like something you'd see out of a movie, but done in, like, a gameplay fun way.
That's something that will happen also the next time we take control again to Ratchet, but that's not immediate, as you'll be able to see. Oh shit. So don't you just aid
God damn it!
This is the equivalent of... okay, there's this sci-fi game called Star Sector, which has its entire premise, which is hysterical for how accurate it is to these days. Basically, the idea is that humanity has colonized an entire galaxy, basically, and uses the equivalent of the relay of Mass Effect for instant, you know, transportation between different systems. But one day, nobody knows why, the relays stopped working, so each system is basically separating on its own, and humanity is almost completely isolated in playing just one specific sector, appropriately named, of one galaxy. And there's also the problem that humanity cannot replicate much in terms of technology in an efficient way, because almost every single tech component has copy protection from corporations, because we put DRM on them.
Oh, lovely.
We got the chaos. We got the power crystal.
The Phantom Ruby, but of course, Riven chooses to protect Clank instead of selfishly take it.
No.
Again, it's a showcase of her character development too.
know this is gonna sound totally weird, but the Morts used to tell me legends about someone on Torin 4 called the
You
Fixer.
forgot Torin 4 is the planet that in a cracking time we found Azimuth
Then I
on.
suppose we should see if the legends are
Now that makes me wonder if there's actually an alternate dimension version of the clock in this
Well, let me guess
dimension
at this.
too.
Surprisingly,
So-
no, which to be fair, it kind of makes sense because the events leading up to the creation of the Great Clock were very specific, and as far as I know, there are no Fongoids in this dimension, so, you know, it makes sense.
So wait, in this dimension, it's the Fixer. So in the regular dimension, it's the Destroyer.
Sure, why not? I also find it particularly weird the fact that the dimensional story arc just stops. You don't get to do a bit of a goodbye to the chief engineer. No, you're just booted up to the end. All right. Oh, I think it's the I think it's this particular cutscene. The voice direction screwed over because Armin Shimmerman definitely doesn't sound like he's given a particular direction of how Nefarious is supposed to act. Check it out.
Filthy lies. They say this dimension is unstable. We're being sucked into a formless void. Ah, false. Think otherwise? I order you to throw your eyes into the local incinerator because they are clearly...
Basically, nothing to see here. Move along. Move along.
have not escaped. How could they if... Ah! I haven't even caught them yet, huh? You morons! Here. You want some truth? My Lombax bounty is now 27...
See, this is kind of what I mean. It feels like it should be as over the top as the previous message, but it's just... It feels like it's a case where it was a day where they told him, just improvise.
I'm thinking it feels like a sense where...
Oh, you see, he was in his 70s when you recorded this.
Okay, I feel like for this sequence, the tone is there. It's just that he doesn't crank up the volume as much as he usually does. Like, let me put it like this.
No, it just sounds fine. It sounds fine to me.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm fine with it, too. I'm just getting into why it might be different from his norm, essentially, for some. Like, the pitch tone is there, but he sounds relatively calm during it, which I guess maybe the idea is, hey, he's finally in a dimension where he's in charge, so he can maintain his cool for a bit.
Anyway, tune in for the next part where we continue with Ratchet and Clank and go to Torrent 4 in order to search for quote-unquote the Fixer. Hopefully we don't run into the characters from Whole Terror. See ya.
Yeah, see ya.